Hello, welcome along to our webinar about mobile app technologies. Guess we should introduce ourselves first. I'm Tom Gilder. I primarily am a Flutter developer at, well, RebLab Studio, which is a kind of spin-off of CodeMate, where we've been doing Flutter for like 5 years, amongst other different mobile technologies. And I have previously done lots of other things. We can talk about our different our lives before now in different technologies. But yeah.
And hello from me. I'm Timo Pieti, and I'm a senior mobile developer here in CodeMate. And I have been doing mostly native apps with iOS and Android, and also with React Native.
So, what are we here to talk about today?
Well, yeah.
I should probably know that already. I think I do. The different trade-offs, right, between the different technologies.
Yeah, and how you can do mobile apps. And,
yes.
and
yeah.
a little bit experience, like how our project has been going, like the good side and the bad side.
Yes, and I guess I think the idea here is that if anyone's watching who maybe is wanting to start a new app or rewrite an existing one, that's kind of a big thing at the moment, that maybe a code base or a technology has kind of got old or not maintained anymore. What technology to pick, how you pick it, whether we agree with each other.
I don't know about that, but we'll see.
Yes, indeed. So how about, why should we listen to us? We've done, I guess, quite a few technologies in the past. I have done, I started off kind of doing Xamarin as my main mobile technology, so Microsoft and .NET. Yeah, which, and before that I did some native, and Xamarin's a bit kind of interesting in that it's kind of native and not native. That kind of the UIs that I did were some of them were very native and some of them were using Xamarin Forms, so cross-platform. And then after that, I've done Flutter mostly for the last 3 years, which I have loved and is my favorite. I'm kind of a bit of a Flutter fanboy, but I don't, I think we can kind of have a spoiler alert here, which is it depends, right? Like that's what we're going to end up.
Yeah, it's like my history is like I started with native. It was like back in the days when Windows Phone was like something already. And then I started to do, I don't remember, was it Android or iOS after that? But all those 3 platforms are native. And after some time, there was like this React Native, and I did something with that. And at least something maybe we can like share that is a good thing is hot reload.
Oh yes, absolutely.
And that is something that I love with React Native. But to be usually when I'm doing React Native, I miss something about native technologies, and then when I'm doing like native technologies, then I'm missing the more hot reload mostly with the React Native. But yeah, it's like let's say React Native is really fun to do the UI stuff.
Yes, and I think I suspect that we kind of feel the same between React Native and Flutter. I have played around with React Native, learned it a little bit, but I've never used it kind of professionally. But the productivity that you get with hot reload and being able to not have to compile apps, I just don't think I could go back to the kind of edit, recompile. I've worked on apps that it took 2 or 3 minutes.
That's pretty fast. When back in the days when you didn't have one backbook, it was like 10. You wait like 5 minutes.
Yes, yeah.
But it is true, like the application which use like Flutter or React Native, the build takes really long time.
Yes.
But usually nowadays the build is a little bit faster when you're doing native, at least.
Yeah.
But one thing that when I'm doing React Native stuff that I hate is like the state management. Or not hate, not so much when I can use hooks now, but still it's like still it's sometimes pain in the ass.
Yeah. Should we go up to kind of a bit of a kind of high level, I guess, that if we I mean, let's say that I am, I have a company and I'm wanting a new app, and I come along to you. Where would you start with what technology you build it in? Would you just go React Native, please?
Not really. It's like I hope that you haven't decided the technology beforehand, because there's still those trade-offs that we have to talk about, and it's like all the business requirements are one thing, and also like maybe if you have some team that has some experience about some technology, and of course about the need what you are needing from CodeMate, it's like the whole application or some support or something like that. Do we need to rewrite something? Or there's a lot of these things that we want to talk firstly about you. And the main thing is like also to have this kind of planning phase where we like seek out all the requirements and think about the best cases, how we can handle the stuff, because it's really important. And I guess it doesn't even matter what the technology really is, because if it's not really planned well, it can be difficult
yes.
in the long run.
Yes. Yeah. And we should probably say that, we're happy to take questions. There is a question section on the app, so please type your questions. We'll see them, and we will answer anything you want. Maybe not what technology for a specific app, but we can certainly give our opinion on stuff. So what would be the key things? What would you, I'm just thinking of what kind of questions we ask people of if someone comes to us and goes, hey, I want an app. It's interesting. I've had people go, I want an app and we want it in React Native. And it's very easy to kind of assume that that people have a good reason for that already. And quite often I've kind of asked why, and I think that's a reasonable question to ask. Okay, why React Native? And they've just kind of gone, well, isn't that what you build apps in these days? And
yeah, it's like usually it's like a point of view, and it's like when we started about our history, and it usually affects in the opinion in many persons. Like well, still it's like where to start. I hope that there's some designer who like ask those tricky like business requirements things, like how the app should look and that kind of stuff. But of course, on the mobile side, it's more important like the device capabilities, what you need. And it's like then comes the like the first difficult, like this really important thing, like if you want to decide between native and cross-platform technology, because there is some native capabilities that you need, and if there is no library that you can use it with Flutter or React Native, you have to write it by yourself, and then it comes a little bit difficulty because you need the native side again.
Yeah,
somebody has to do that kind of.
I guess the thing here is that there are lots of different questions about technology requirements, device requirements, design requirements, and it's kind of working out which order to go in with them, because I think technology has to come first, right? What devices you want to run on obviously needs to come first. So if it's just a mobile app or desktop app, web app, tablets normally go hand in hand with.
Yeah, and that is not like clear anymore, because it was like back in days it was only like iOS and Android, and of course Windows Phone back in the days. But nowadays you can use Flutter or even React Native to do desktop. And Flutter to do web. And of course you can use React to do web. Okay.
Yes. And then there are some, there are kind of maybe rarer platforms, things like Apple TV, Apple Watch, and Android wearables, which, Flutter. There have been some experiments with that, but I wouldn't recommend that someone tries to build an Apple TV app using Flutter. It's obviously better to go native. So I think looking at the platforms that you want to support has to come first.
Yeah.
And then it's kind of the integrations, I guess, like what technologies like you're saying about like the native side of things, of what device, various hardware things and what you're doing on it, like what the core functionality of the app is, I guess. Yeah. You know, for example, you know, with Flutter, there are some things which maybe I'd be like, oh, I'm not sure. Like, I wouldn't want to build like a video editor. I don't think right now. Probably if someone came to me wanting, you know, a Final Cut Pro clone or something like that for professional video editing, I'd probably like, yeah, no, you're probably going to be wanting to be closer to the native side of things. So like that's the next thing I think I'd go for. Do you think like the?
Yeah, and that's a good point. Like to talk about like the fundamental difference between React Native and Flutter.
Yes.
It's like because React Native is like a technology that uses those native components, and well, the Flutter is like using the canvas to draw everything from scratch.
Yeah.
So that is like why you wouldn't want to maybe do a video editor, because it doesn't.
Yes. Yeah. And I am in, you know, I tend to be a big fan of the way that Flutter works, of drawing everything itself, of kind of, you know, acting a bit like a game engine, of owning every pixel and being able to draw whatever it wants. Because generally the kind of apps I've worked on have wanted very custom UIs. And I think it's fair to say that most mobile apps, that tends to be the way that they go these days, that you want it to be the branding of the company kind of coming across and looking identical on iOS and Android. That's maybe less true for like desktop apps. I think a bit of they tend to be more towards the native side, and like maybe productivity apps on mobile, they tend to want to be a bit more native-y. If that.
Just think about desktop apps. It's more like a Java as a like UI and that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of like improvements there.
Yes.
Like what Flutter could bring, but but it's like I guess it's not so modern nowadays to like create this using only the native components. You have to use like this wow effect, and especially if you are some kind of maybe startup.
Yes.
And or when you want to make break to some market, and of course there's like you have to think about the audience. Like some way how the UI works doesn't like work with elder people or young people. You have to like think this kind of stuff, and it's like you might even, I don't know if you can ask like your age in the application and build your like flow using that, but it's like
yes. And I guess there are kind of non-functional things like, well, not obvious things like accessibility, for example, that I think these days most of the cross-platform frameworks have very good support for accessibility. I don't know, like I think React Natives is, I'm assuming that it's very good.
Going better.
Yes.
But it's like if you want to full accessibility, I guess it's like native has the best support, of course.
Yes. But, I think it's something that's very hard to kind of abstract between the different platforms because they can work quite differently.
But there's like a good thing is like then you in the code you only have to like focus on the one platform only, because those accessibility things, it's like something that's not so easy to handle.
Yes.
Even in the native side.
Yes.
Because it's like but usually those can be also like design errors, not so much technology. Like the design is built so that it's really hard to implement. And then I guess Flutter could be the easiest way then.
Yes.
Because you can do all the fun things with those, but still it's like I don't know.
Yeah, and so I guess if we're kind of trying to make an order here of like what you consider when picking a technology. So what platforms comes first, then technology kind of integrations mostly of will. I think it's fair to say that all cross-platform frameworks you will be able to do any kind of native integration. It's just a matter of how easy it is. Do you think that's a fair?
Yeah, it's like I've been thinking that there's like this mobile front end and back end. It's like the front end could be like native or like some cross-platform technology like Flutter and React Native, and maybe Xamarin or something. And then there's like the back end of mobile. It's like the native, like when you integrate to the the phone.
Yes.
And or iPad or something else. It could be like I guess you can use Kotlin to build application for Chrome OS also. So it's like a desktop thing, but it's like and also we didn't talk about those like applications that run in WebView.
Yeah. Yes.
And
people have very strong opinions on this, don't they?
so you like them?
I mean, here's the thing. I mean, like, the fundamental thing is that I believe that you can build a great app using pretty much any technology.
Yeah.
Even technologies that I maybe don't like myself. I know there are great apps out there built in them. It's just that I know that it's just that, as far as I believe, they will have been a much more painful process and probably taken longer. So there are some really good kind of WebView based apps out there. I mean, I prefer Flutter. I prefer Flutter because I view it as something which was kind of made for the job. It goes into a bit of a wider topic, but fundamentally, web apps are a bit crazy when you think about the history of HTML and like it was designed for like documents, and then we've kind of used it as a format to build email clients. I'm not saying it doesn't work. Like, obviously, you can do amazing things for it. You've got things like VS Code, which are a web app, right? And they're great. I use it every day. But to me, being able to use something which was properly designed ground up to do the job, I feel is simpler. But other people view the fact that you can then build a website and have it run on absolutely everything without any modifications. They view that as simpler. But
yeah,
it's trade-offs, right? Like that's that's the word of the day.
Yeah, that's true. Like
yes.
I guess like with the web view, it's like the screen size can be a little bit difficult.
Yes.
Because there's like a really small devices. I guess it's been a little bit better now.
Yes.
Because all the devices has a little bit more memory and like processing power and that kind of stuff. But still, it's like when you are doing these web view based apps, you need to think about how to communicate between the native side and the website, and it needs to be from the JavaScript bridge.
Yes.
And it can be like, again, you have to think it like an API, how to communicate between those. And there's like if you have really heavy set of like native capabilities that you need to handle, and then it comes quite hard because you have to pass all the information from the native side through the JavaScript bridge to the browser, and then you have to catch that event and do something using the statement event there. And well, of course, it's callbacks and that kind of stuff, but it's not so easy.
Yeah.
And it brings this situation that there you have like you need like a native developer to do those native stuff. And then you can have a separate team, of course, to do the UI stuff, but then you need somebody to do those bridge thing.
Yes, absolutely. And I think that's where, even when you are using Flutter or React Native, it's incredibly useful. And we're very lucky here that we have kind of people who've come from a native iOS background and native Android background. Having people who kind of do specialize in one of the platforms, because I mean, I kind of take the view that it's almost impossible for one person to be an expert in, React Native and iOS native SDK and Android SDK. It's so big, right? That you're all, and particularly when you get into like all the different frameworks of like hardware support, you can know a lot about it. You can have like a broad knowledge, but
yeah, I guess I can agree on that. I have a broad knowledge of all those three, like React Native, iOS, and Android. Still, I cannot say I'm specialist in neither.
Yeah,
but I guess I'm pretty good still. But still, it's like, and it's like when you're jumping between those technologies, it's always like this mindset you have to rethink how it works because native works a little bit different than like well, native Android and iOS even works so differently. And yeah.
So like, I guess if we go back to like after kind of what platforms you're targeting, I think the next one's like design, because I do think still it's the case that different cross-platform technologies kind of, some of them make it very easy to do very custom UIs, animations.
Yeah, I guess the main question is, do you want them to see like they are like really same look like?
Yes.
Or do you like allow some little bit differences between the platforms? And usually I wouldn't go to that only one look because it can be like really confusing if you have to mandatory have equally same looking like iOS and Android. And it can take quite a lot of time. I'm not sure if Flutter works out of box in everything like that, but
in terms of, do you mean
like the UI looks same on iOS and Android?
Well, it adapts itself, so you can kind of it tends to be that most Flutter apps are kind of based on material design, so Google's and Android's design language. But out of the box, if you run it on iOS, you'll get like some like more iOS-y type things, like page transitions will be the same as native iOS apps, and then on Android they'll be the same as Android apps. I think that's a really nice balance myself, because as I say, most of the apps that I have worked on, and it does depend on what customers want, most of them, people don't, the most important thing has been that the brand comes through, the kind of the brand colors, and not, not whether a button looks like an iOS button or an Android button. I tend to think that iOS and Android, like, the design of them has converged so much that to a very flat interface that doesn't really feel massively different anymore.
Yeah, it's fun because like back 8 years back, it was like especially Apple was like really strict about that the UI needs to look like what they want them to look, and it has like nowadays it's good that it's not so like strict anymore, but it's like I remember these cases like they were like design made for iOS, and then I got like you need to do this on Android, and we try. Then the customer said that you need to do it iOS.
Yes,
and they were like really hard to try to convince them they can look different because the design is not so strict. But that was easy. But when I needed to do that on Windows Phone, that's wasn't so easy.
Yes.
But they are like and why it's not so easy? Because there's like between the two platforms there is one big difference, and with Android it's the back button.
That's exactly what I was just thinking of mentioning. Yes, yeah.
And of course I has this swipe back, but also Android nowadays in the newest versions. But still, it's like that gives quite a lot of like challenge in the design and let's say the navigational architecture of the application. Like when you have to think about when you can go back and when you exit the app, and how if you go some pages flow and when to jump from there.
And I think that's probably the most important thing between the platforms is users not getting lost right within the app. That more than whether a button looks like the platform, it's that you expect the navigation to behave like the other apps. And there are big differences, like having a back button, and like, I'm an iPhone user. If I have an app and swipes to go back doesn't work, I hate it. It drives me mad. And I think, I about 4 years ago or something, when I was working with Xamarin, but the swipe to go back wasn't working on one of our pages, and it took me so long to fix it. But I was just like determined to fix it. That it was it's a really crucial part of using an iPhone, and it's something that I think some people it's something that some people would view as a little detail, right? That they'd be like, oh, it's only a tiny little thing, it's only swipe to go back, but users hate it. Like, it's something that I'm used to doing every single day, and
Yeah, that is like I'm Android user mostly, so it's like a little bit different for me. But that is something that I'm running into, like in the design and also in the like mobile development.
Yes.
That if you are Android user or iOS user, it affects quite a lot.
Yes.
Like how you think.
Yes.
And what things you like keep an eye on. But still, it's like but usually, like when I'm developing, even though I am an Android user, I use like iOS simulator.
Yes.
And also nowadays Android emulator, because it's much faster thanks to M1 Apple.
They're good, aren't they?
But it's like that is like something that has evolved quite nicely, because all the hardware has gone much better, like back in the 8 years, and you don't need to think about the like memory management that much anymore.
Yes.
But you should still, because it's like that is like something that you can forget, and it can be costly in the long run, because spaghetti is spaghetti. Let's say that way.
When do you think, I think this is kind of an interesting question, when, like, what are the business requirements that mean you would really recommend going for a native app, like completely forgetting about cross-platform? I think that's quite an interesting
one thing could be if you are using only like iOS or Android.
Yes.
But that is not like a reason yet, because you might need the other platform in the long run.
Yes.
But I guess it's like one thing could be like touch events. If you need to track them, then you can use it maybe even better using the native components and that kind of stuff. There has been one application where I needed to track all the track events and that kind of stuff, and it was like I built this really specialized native components to handle those. But it's like when you are relying on some like library to do that stuff, or when you can do them like using the native APIs, because there's also one thing that we didn't talk about is like the iOS and Android version where you are targeting.
Yes, because that absolutely
is one thing that can affect, because like especially on Android, there could be like these older APIs that you need to like handle, and you never know the library that you are using if it uses all those older ones or that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
because like you could even need to target in. Well, you need to target in the latest like Android and iOS nowadays, but still, it's like that is one thing that could happen if you need to go back and that kind of stuff.
And there are some interesting, again, trade-offs there, I think, between, so when you're using cross-platform, as you say, like it's kind of it's hidden from you, right? If you're relying on plugins if you're relying on other people's code to do the communication with the native platform, you don't really maybe know how good the support is between the different versions of the platform, and then there's a risk that those will need updating for newer versions. But at the same time, it tends to be, at least with Flutter, that you are very isolated from OS upgrades, because so for example, I've had iOS apps before break when they have native interfaces. New versions of iOS comes along, the new version has something different in it that then has broken an interface. That won't happen with Flutter generally, and I would guess it would happen less with React Native than kind of doing a native, because like React Native, I don't know.
Not really. It's like I guess it's like now, like in the beginning of the month, there was like this React Native update that brings support for Android 12.
Yes.
And it's like still, it's like I don't want to take it in like use, because all the other dependencies doesn't support that. And there's also coming like this new architecture with React Native, and it can be like a really demanding to integrate if all the dependencies are not like updated also. So that is like with React Native and Flutter, is the thing is like you are like relying really heavily on dependencies, and that is like something if the application is really sensitive or something like that, that could be also a reason why to go to native, because you don't want to be on like if some plugin or library breaks or it has like some security flaw, and it can take quite long to fix. And then it's like then the native is more secure way to go. But it's like again, depends about how sensitive things there are.
Yeah, I guess it's all about the number of layers, isn't it? Like the more layers between you and the native platform, the more stuff can potentially break. And if those layers work well, it can be simpler. If you don't like when you don't have to worry about the layers, when you don't have to worry about what's between your app and the operating system, great, everyone's happy. But the second that you have to get involved in those layers, you then have, potentially a lot to debug, a lot to go through, different programming languages, and that's when it gets complicated. So that's, I guess, the thing of when you would look at going native to avoid having to go through all of those different layers.
Yeah, and it's more about also the features.
Yes.
Like you have to ask yourself, do I want to do it by myself and maintain it, or rely on somebody else?
Yes. Yeah.
And it's like in the short run, if you are like trying to just do this application to satisfy some like the startup, like try it out.
Yes.
Then it's like why not use all the libraries that are available, because you can get it on the markets and maybe do some cache and then redo it again in a year.
Yes.
From scratch.
Yes.
And that is like when you get the money coming in. But it's like but if you are like have a goal that you need to publish it in the, I don't know, year or two, that is even possible, but still it's like not really. Can it be? Have you been in that long project that takes year or two to publish?
No. I think a year has been the maximum. I think probably it takes 2 years only if things go very wrong. But luckily I've never been on something like that.
But it's like again we come to the design part.
Yes.
Because if you have like a really good design and the business requirements are like clear, then you don't waste time to redo stuff, because that is good point. That it's like, but there has been like this application that has been like 5 years on the market, and you have to do something there. And I guess like a native side doesn't rust so fast, but like with the React Native, I don't want to even think about 1 year even or half a year without any maintaining, because it can, those cross-platform technology, at least React Native, it evolves quite fast.
Yeah.
With like now comes the React 18 and it changes something at least, like how you have to, and with the hooks, you have to rethink all the state management and the kind of stuff. So
yeah. I think that's something we always say, isn't it? Like maintain your mobile apps. Like it can get very expensive to, like, if you just leave a mobile app for 3 years and
and also like keep it simple, stupid. Like if you make it too complicated, like and you have to rush stuff, like especially if the base of the application, if it's rushed, it can be really hard to like maintain.
Yes.
And it's that is like in a project, it is like this dull moment when you don't have any features, and if you go, like, you have to get some screen visible right away, and well, you can test it, but if you have to like have time to make the base of the application, that it's easier to in the long run do stuff.
What do you think the biggest risks are with using like cross-platform technologies? Like if I was coming to you and going, okay, we want an app, we're thinking about React Native. What would you say are like the biggest risks in terms of that, of like, I guess the big thing is future proofing, right? Like kind of what we've been talking about, but
I don't know. Well, with cross-platform, it's like all these dependencies, libraries that somebody decides that they don't want to maintain it anymore.
Yeah.
And it's like then you have to ask the question: do you start to maintain it? And then you have to maintain it for the whole group who are using it.
Yes.
And of course, that is one thing. Is like you want to use it, but you don't want to contribute anything. And that is like one thing that I don't usually like either. Especially if the marketing share start to grow for that, then you should like give something back also.
Yeah, I guess the chance of React Native itself dying like anytime soon and just like the actual framework not being maintained is pretty low, right? There's so much usage of it in the world that
and it's like the React is so popular.
Yes, yeah.
So I don't think it's going to die.
Yes,
it's going to evolve. It's going to evolve really. Like there's this new architecture coming now.
Yes,
so it's like doing. Let's see how it works, but it's like still it's like there's big change, and it's good that they are doing this kind of like they realized that it's too heavy platform and they're doing again like so it takes a couple of years of course, but still it's like again with the Flutter it's like you get 0 point something and then you get 1.0 and 2.5 I guess it's now. And still like it's released. React Native is still in beta, so
yeah, when's that going to change? They really need to come on, like.
But what about the Flutter? Is it still in beta?
No, it went stable like
but do you feel like it's in beta?
Not most of the time, no, not particularly, not for I mean it's not stable across every platform. That's the thing that they do, that they they announced stable Windows support earlier in this year, but Mac and Linux are still kind of in pre-release, but work really well. So it tends to be how long Flutter has supported a platform as to how mature it feels. So iOS and Android definitely don't feel like beta. They feel like very, very solid. Web, although it is stable, is, I think, we have had great success with it. We did one of the kind of world's first of bringing a mobile app to the web with our Moi project. But it did have things that were like, it had more difficulties than bringing it to mobile. It was more difficult. Fundamentally with web, you're supporting lots of different web browsers and they're all their own platform. So it's very, there is a lot of complexity there behind the scenes. Flutter Web is not right for every app, definitely, as well as the other thing there. So that's the one that feels the least stable to me at the moment. And you need to be very careful with choosing that.
But yeah, with the React Native, it's like same that usually the iOS part works pretty well because there are not so many devices that you need to support. But on the Android side, it depends about the manufacturer. What they're like, it could be like having these different kind of chipsets, and that doesn't work same.
Yes.
And they could be like with the platform, it's open, so they have made them something special for them, and those kind of things. And if you like, I remember one time there's like this great font that we have chosen for the application. And then there was OnePlus devices that didn't work with the font. And if we started to investigate why, and it was like they have this own, was it like OnePlus Slate or something like that, which is like enforced. So
Yeah, and that's the thing of Android, isn't it? Even with cross-platform frameworks, you can still run into per-device issues.
Yeah.
We've had them on Flutter as well.
And then back in the days, it was recommended that you use the platform fonts because they usually work, and they work like with all the accessibility options. And that is one thing about the design. What you have to think about, like what kind of fonts you are using, and it's not like the happy case.
Yes.
And also with the design, usually there's like drawn this beautiful happy case scenario, but there have which is like a well, in Figma or something like that, there's like the whole view is visible, but in the device it needs to be scrolled, and that is something that can bring first like these issues with the UX, and also it's like the first thing like the user or the developer or the let's say product owner sees that this is not the same,
yes,
and that can be even shock.
I think yes, and like particularly with Android, you can kind of swap. Manufacturers can swap out so many of the components, right? Like for their own keyboard and things like that. And
oh yeah, keyboard.
I don't want to mention any names, but Samsung.
Yeah.
Samsung. I've every it doesn't matter which technology I've used or which app I'm making. At some point, someone's gone, yeah, there's a problem here with Samsung keyboards on this one random Samsung device. Which it's like even when you're using these cross-platform technologies, you still have these kind of weird, and it's where testing on each device is still important, right? Of making sure there aren't those weird issues somewhere.
Yeah. How about the testing part?
Testing, yeah.
Do you prefer like a manual testing or like non-manual?
I think both are essential. I'm a big fan of automated tests. Flutter is very, very strong in terms of its support for it's got three main types of automated tests, of which I really, really like widget tests, which are almost kind of full end-to-end tests, but not quite. Like they test your interface, and kind of we tend to have a lot of kind of tests that put the UI on the screen, but kind of on a virtual screen, press a button, and then check that the right thing is sent to the server. That kind of thing. It's great for that. Yeah. How about you? What do you like? I mean, what's it like in the React Native world?
Well, I like them both, and especially like doing those unit tests, like to ensure that the business cases work correctly.
Yes.
But something that I'm missing quite a lot with the libraries that I'm using, like test examples.
Yes.
It's really annoying to trying to figure out how to test some library sometimes, because like there could be like some mock or something like that, and of course there's like still with React Native you usually use TypeScript now, but like a couple of years ago it's like a new thing, and it was really annoying to get some JavaScript working with TypeScript and also other way around. So yeah.
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking about the kind of risks thing again. I'm just like, because that tends to be like, I feel like when people come to us and when we're discussing what technology to use, that the number one thing that people are a bit scared of is that we pick a technology, and this was particularly a thing with Flutter. Kind of, I think it's largely gone away now. I think Flutter is now big enough that people and has enough big companies using it, for example, that people aren't. It still comes up now and again of like, what if Google kill this thing? And kind of, I take the view that it has got bigger than Google. That the same. I would assume that you would feel the same about React Native, that it's got bigger than any one company than Facebook. And
yeah, of course it is, because the community is like that is the biggest risk with cross-platform, at least with Flutter and React Native, if the community dies.
Yes, exactly. And
if there is a new technology comes with, which is better than either one of those.
And I feel like there are maybe a few technologies which are maybe, he's on the way out a bit too harsh, but I guess it's it's a fact of life that at any one point a technology is either increasing in the number of people using it or decreasing, and trying to work that out is quite difficult. I think it would be fair to say that Xamarin has got less popular and isn't viewed as a kind of I don't view it as a technology that's like on the up, and I think I would struggle to recommend it at the moment. That there aren't that many good reasons to use it. So yeah.
And one risk came to my mind is like if iOS or Apple decides that it doesn't want to support Flutter because it's Google's product.
Yes, I think we are beyond a place where that would realistically happen.
Yeah, probably, but still it's like some maybe not so big risk, but still it's like something, because those are big players.
Yes.
Like I guess I'm just always interested about what is the Microsoft next move. Like it's on the tool side, it's really getting like you used VS Code for React Native and that kind of stuff, and App Center to distribute stuff and that kind of stuff. So Microsoft is really strong on like the tools part. Then there's Amazon. What will Amazon do? That is like one thing that I'm always thinking, if there is something that they want to get the market share.
Yeah, like I guess, are they like the biggest company, like tech company, that hasn't come up with their own cross-platform technology that I know of, at least?
Yeah. I guess there's like, what was the Amazon? Did they have some kind of platform for something? But still, it's like Netflix is buying game studios now.
Yes.
They are evolving to that side. So that could be like something that we are seeing in 5 years, that these big companies do some market play, what we don't know yet. But that is like when it comes to like how long this technology can like be valid. Like because like 10 years, no way I cannot say that any application that I have done can last for 10 years.
Yes.
5 years, I have done like maintenance for application that is like 5 years old, so it's still valid. But still, it's like if you are looking like 5 years ago, the React Native was something really new, and I guess Flutter was also really in alpha. But it's like takes quite a long time to get the big market share still.
It does, and kind of, I guess, different companies and different projects will take a different view on like how big a technology has to be. And I do think that, and it kind of matters, right? That if you are making a very small app that maybe it doesn't have that longer potential lifespan, then it matters less. But if you're making an enormous app that you're hoping will last 10 years, then yes, it matters, a great deal. It's difficult for us, right? We don't have a crystal ball.
Yeah, but it's still it's like every technology needs some maintenance.
Yes.
It's like I guess like at least once in a year, because then comes the major releases from iOS and Android. That is one place. After that, like you have to check everything works, and I guess like once in a half year, you should at least check out the new stuff.
Yeah.
With React Native, I'm doing that monthly even, but it's still like what I need to do.
Yeah. Yes.
And it's like at least for me, it's like with React Native, it's always like a scary part when I need to upgrade the new version of it, because you don't know what breaks, and it probably isn't with the problem. It's not with the React Native. It's like with the dependencies.
Yeah.
So it's like, and if there's like some hacks that they are using.
Yes. Yeah.
And also one thing with the like dependencies, like on the libraries that you're using, the licensing is something, because there was this React Native, they changed the license back in a couple of years ago, and I guess they changed it something again. It was like a scary part that they want. Yeah, the licensing is still usually it's MIT, but still it's like something that you need to check.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
And it's like with application when you are doing only like your usage is not so high. They are not like these risks like with the licensing and legal stuff. They are not so scary. But when you get enough markets, there could be like there are companies out there who like investigate and are the licensing correct, and if not, they contact the company and they're using your product. Do you want to sue them? We get like take the half of this amount.
Yes, yeah.
And that is like this is something not really happening in Finland, thank God. But it's like something that can happen if you go to like different market shares. And that was one thing that we haven't talked about. Like the one thing that you need to keep an eye on is like the countries that you are targeting.
Absolutely, yes.
Because especially with the features that you're using, because there are like different kind of regulations that you need to take an eye on. And still it's like everything is like published from the app stores, so you need to, well, there are rules what you can publish there, and you have to like go with them.
Yes.
Also.
Yeah.
And that is like something that I usually get tasked to do something, and I tell them to like you need to contact a lawyer and talk with him or her first. And
yeah, and there are some quite, maybe not obvious things, aren't there, with when you're thinking about different countries to target, because you've got different market share between the different operating systems. You've got different, some countries will have more older devices and some will have more newer, and also things like the connectivity speed or even like data allowance, because we're very lucky in Finland to basically have unlimited data on almost everyone, right? Has unlimited data, and it's relatively cheap, whereas in America it's fairly rare to have unlimited data. So for us it's easy to forget about, I mean, obviously we would really care and make sure that we're using as least data as possible, but things like how big the app is as a download can really matter depending on the different country that you're looking at. Things like that, you can get very deep into kind of different requirements that then affect the choice.
That is one thing that is good for native.
Yes,
because the application size is usually smaller.
There are some things native is just always going to win at, I think.
But yeah, and one thing about those stores is like the fundamental difference between web technology, doing web project and mobile project, is that you have to publish it in the store, and it's like a web project you can publish it by yourself. And
yes,
that is like you have to keep in mind.
Yes, yeah, and then you've got things like Huawei and the fun there with them not being able to use Google technologies and having their own store. I guess that doesn't really affect technology choice, because in the end, you're either using Google Play or you're not, that kind of.
But I'm not sure, like on the native side, I guess you have to do some differences if you want to publish in the Huawei store, but I'm not sure with React Native. I haven't tried because it's like still not so popular thing to do. But again, good that you reminded me about that. Because but this is like again being part of bigger place, like with Huawei, it's like you drop out from the Google, and even though they have like some access to previous version of Android, but still it's like a really hard thing to start doing your own stuff.
Yes, absolutely. Cool. We have 5 minutes left. That's gone quickly.
Yeah. Do we have some questions?
I'm just having a look. We have some questions that we kind of had before, and I guess we could go with this. Actually, I mean, should we do the what is our favorite technology and why? You know, I mean, we might as well, right?
Yeah.
Because developers have individual favorite technologies. It's our own choice, and we're not going to say the others are pointless. But what would you go for?
What is the question first?
The question is, as a developer, which technology do you like to work with the most and why? Yeah.
Well, I have it depends because it's usually when I'm doing native stuff, I miss something from the React Native or cross-platform in general. It's mostly the hot reload. And when I'm doing all the React Native stuff, I'm missing the state management from the native side because it's more flexible. So it's like a mix of these, but it's I like them both, but it's it's what I need to do. If I need to do UI stuff, React Native, and I need to do some logical stuff, then I would go to native.
Would you have a recommendation for most apps? Like the majority of kind of like if we take games out of the equation, most kind of business apps, would you go so far as to say, yes, I think React Native is the best choice for most apps?
No problem. It could be Flutter.
Oh, okay. Nice.
But it's yeah.
It depends. Yeah, it always depends.
It depends.
Yeah. Oh, yes. I do take the view at the moment that Flutter is, I think, the best choice for most apps, but not all of them. And I would be, incredibly wary if anyone goes to an agency and goes, what should I build my app in? And they go, oh, Flutter for everything, absolutely everything. No, forget every technology. Like that's a massive red flag, right? There are definitely apps that I would not recommend building in Flutter. There aren't massive numbers of things. I think for most apps, Flutter and then probably React Native after that would be my recommendation. But it depends. And yeah.
Yeah, with the React Native, it's the state management with hooks and Redux query. It's quite nice because you don't have to write so much Redux boilerplate anymore. And it's something that I would like to try out with Flutter. It's the state management. Is it that easy? And also with the Flutter, something that I didn't like is the bracket hell. And but I don't know if it's better already, but it's that comes when let's say experience that I want to split the code to many parts, like in the different files. It's easy to write everything into one file, and then you have this really massive monolith.
Yeah.
And it can happen with any technology.
Yes.
And I have seen it with many technologies, but
yes.
It's easy, it's fun when you are doing that, but when you have to start to fix something from there, it's then you have to ask again, do you write more monolith or more spaghetti, or try to refactor a little bit bigger thing? And all the product owners and product a little bit scary because I usually start to refactor too much, but it's still
I think break stuff down is generally smaller bits is pretty much always good. But
it's a main thing about the maintainability.
Yes, absolutely. Oh, I think we're about out of time.
Yeah.
We have. I mean, we've said it depends a lot, and it does.
It depends a lot.
That's kind of the.
Yeah, and it's I guess the main thing is in the design phase.
Yes. Yeah.
So hire a good designer who makes our life easier.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And a product owner who knows what he or she wants.
It helps, doesn't it?
And can take a no as an answer and rethink what is the main user thing that we want to achieve really.
Yep, absolutely. Great.
yeah,
I think we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for joining us.
thanks.
If you have any more questions, absolutely, get in touch, and we'd be happy to talk about technology choice. But great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, bye.
Bye.